Welcome to Jim Rohn Treasures, where timeless wisdom blends with modern life. There was a morning many years ago when I sat alone in a small room, holding a blank calendar in my hands. No plan, no goals, no trace of any habit that could move me forward. I remember thinking, Jim, if today repeats long enough, what will your future look like? That question hit me like a punch to the chest because I knew the answer and I didn't like it at all. Have you ever felt that way? Waking up with financial pressure weighing on you. Working all month and your wallet is still empty. Looking toward the future and seeing only fog and worry. You know you could be better, but you haven't been able to start. Not because you're weak, but because your current habits aren't taking you where you want to go. And then I discovered a truth that I would spend the rest of my life sharing with my students. Life doesn't change through big moments. It changes through the small things you repeat every day. Habits are the prophecy of destiny. They are silent, but they are writing your future day by day. And the good news is you don't need to change everything. You only need to change one thing you do daily and your future will shift direction. In today's video, I want to take you through 12 principles that can become a true turning point. These principles aren't theories, but lessons I paid for with failure, with the long winters of my life. And I hope you stay until the end because the final principle may make you look at your life with completely different eyes. Principle 1. Daily habits are the prophecy of your future. There was a morning I stood in front of the mirror and looked for a long time. I saw something that startled me. For an entire year, I was still the same person. No progress, no change. And the more I looked, the more I understood a truth I had always avoided. If I kept living today for 5 more years, where would my future go? That question made me silent. And sometimes silence is the most honest voice. Have you ever felt that? The feeling of knowing you could do better. But your current habits keep you stuck in place. Working hard, financial pressure, and every night you ask yourself, why isn't my life getting any better? I once lived that way. And then I realized something that changed my entire life. Life doesn't change because of special days. It changes because of what you repeat every day. Not big moments, not a lucky day, but the way you live from the moment you open your eyes to the moment you go to sleep. The future doesn't lie in luck. The future lies in routine habits. You read 10 pages of a book today, nothing changes. You skip reading today, still nothing changes. But if you repeat that for a year, one person begins to see the world more broadly while the other stays in the same place. Discipline builds the future. Neglect destroys the future. And both begin with very small things. I remember a student once came to me and said, Jim, my life is full of problems. I don't understand why. I told him to write down all his habits for 7 days. When he came back, he just looked down and whispered, I understand now. My future is right here. No one ruins their life in a day. No one builds their life in a day. Everything comes from what is repeated in silence. Look at modern life and you'll see this clearly. One person wakes up and spends 45 minutes scrolling social media. Their whole day becomes scattered. One person spends 10 minutes reading each morning. A year later, their thinking is completely different. One person procrastinates on an important task. Each delay chips away at their confidence. One person tries to get 1% better each day. A year later, they are 37 times better than before. It's all habits, not magic, not secret formulas, just habits. Let me give you an image to remember forever. Life is like a ship on a vast ocean. Its rudder is smaller than you think, but just 1 degree off. 5 years later, the ship lands at a completely different destination. Your habits are that rudder. And now I want you to ask yourself a very important question. If you repeat today for the next 5 years, will you be proud or will you regret it? That answer will tell you what you need to change. And here's what I want you to remember. You cannot escape your habits because they are the draft of the future you are about to live. I once thought I had to change my whole life. But no, I only needed to change one small thing I did each day. And then that one thing pulled many other things with it. One habit pulled a new future with it. And to change habits, you must understand their roots. Because habits don't appear out of nowhere. They begin with how you think, how you believe, how you view life. Principle 2. Philosophy shapes attitude. Attitude shapes action. Action shapes destiny. There is a question that followed me for many years. A question I believe anyone who wants to change their life must ask themselves at least once. Why do two people with the same starting point, the same opportunities, end up with completely different futures? I observed many lives. I watched their actions. I listened to their words. And then I realized something very important. Something I later considered the foundation of all change. Life does not begin with action. It begins with philosophy. Philosophy creates attitude, creates action, creates results, creates destiny. That is the chain no one can escape. Think back. The same advice, but two people react completely differently. One person hears, "Reading can change your life." They start reading immediately. Another person hears the exact same sentence. They nod and keep living the same way. The difference is not knowledge, not time, not luck. The difference is the philosophy they believe is true. You believe learning is an investment, you will learn. You believe learning doesn't change anything, you will ignore the opportunity to transform your life. You believe health matters, you will eat and exercise with intention. You believe a little won't hurt. Then that little becomes a habit that ruins your future. Philosophy is the root. Action is only the branches growing from that root. A story I remember clearly. I once met a man who had been working extremely hard for many years. He wasn't lazy, not lacking effort, but he was still poor. He told me, "Jim, maybe I'm not meant to be rich. Maybe I'm just born to live enough." I asked him one simple question. "So, what do you believe about money?" He answered immediately, "I think rich people are just lucky." Just one sentence, but it revealed his entire philosophy. See it? No matter how hard he tried, that philosophy pulled him back to the same place because action always follows belief. I advised him to adopt a different philosophy. Wealth is the result of discipline, not luck. A few years later, he returned to me. His face changed. His eyes changed. His life changed. He said, "I didn't change my life by getting a new job. I changed my life when I changed my belief." I smiled because that is the core. You cannot build a big future with a small philosophy. A person who believes I'm not good at English. They quit every time it gets hard. A person who believes my body can't change. They train for 3 days, rest for 4, then quit. A person who believes a book can change a life. 3 years later, they are a completely different person. Small beliefs, but big results. Philosophy is like the lens you wear. If the lens is blurry, you see opportunity as risk. If the lens is clear, you see paths others overlook. You don't need to change the whole world. You only need to change the lens you're looking through. A question for you. Which belief is holding you back? And which belief do you need to replace to move your life in the right direction? Answer honestly and you've already gone halfway to change. Life doesn't follow your dreams. It follows your philosophy. When I was young, I wanted a good life. But I thought like someone only deserving of an average one. I wanted success. But I believed I couldn't achieve it. Only when I changed my philosophy could I change my actions. And when actions changed, results changed. My future began with a new belief. And when your philosophy changes, you will realize something very important. Morning is not just the time you wake up. It is the moment you set the direction of your entire day. Principle 3, morning, the first battle that shapes your entire life. There's one thing I learned very early in life. You cannot win at life if you lose the first battle of each day. And that battle is the morning. It sounds simple, but morning is where everything begins. It is the moment you set the direction for your day, your week, your life. Morning does not lie. It reflects who you are. A person who wakes up in a rush, jumps out of bed, walks while searching for their keys, working while breathing heavily. Sounds familiar? When they live like that, their whole day is swept away in chaos. Because morning is a miniature version of life. The way you treat your morning is the way you treat your life. On the other hand, a person who wakes up early slowly, spends a few minutes for themselves to read a few pages, breathe deeply, or simply sit still and see clearly what they want for the day. That person is winning a battle many people lose every morning. I always tell my students, don't underestimate the snooze button. Because when you hit snooze, you're sending a message to yourself. I'm not ready to live my life yet. That is no longer a habit. It is a philosophy. Every morning you hit snooze, you lose a small battle and lose long enough. You lose at life. I once met a very successful man. I asked him, how do you manage so many things and still stay calm? He smiled and said, Jim, I don't start my day by chasing life. I start my day by leading it. That sentence stayed with me for years. And then I realized successful people don't have more hours. They just use their first hour differently. One person wakes up and opens social media immediately, and their brain is pulled into someone else's life. One person reads for 10 minutes in the morning, and their thinking changes after 100 days. One person spends 15 minutes planning their day, and the entire day flows more clearly. One person lets the morning slip away, and their whole day becomes controlled and chaotic. Morning is like setting the tone for the entire symphony of life. Morning is like the ship's rudder. Small, but it determines the direction. Just a slight misalignment in the morning, and the whole day goes off course. A question for you. Are you starting your day by leading it or by being swept away? Do you start with intention or with hurry? Answer honestly. Morning never lies. If you win the morning, you win the day. And if you win enough days, you win your life. I once lived chaotic mornings and ended up with chaotic days. But when I learned to give my mornings to personal growth, my life changed direction. Not because I did more, but because I started better. Morning doesn't create success in a day, but it creates the version of you capable of success for a lifetime. And for the morning to truly change your life, you need more than discipline, you need a change in identity. How you see yourself. Principle 4. Change identity before changing habits. There's one thing most people never realize. You can't maintain a habit not because you're weak. You can't maintain it because you still think you're the old you. You want to live with discipline, but inside you still believe you're someone who easily gives up. You want to wake up early, but inside you still tell yourself, I'm just not a morning person. You want to live healthy, but deep down you think, I'm not the type who works out. And so no matter how hard you try, you always go back to your old habits. Not because you can't, but because your identity hasn't changed. I always tell my students, people only act according to the person they believe they are. If you think you are undisciplined, you will act like someone who is undisciplined. If you think you're not good enough, you will avoid the things that challenge you. If you think you don't deserve success, you will sabotage every opportunity that comes your way. Habits don't appear on their own. They flow from identity. From the story you tell yourself every day. A story I remember for life. I once met a young man who wanted to change his life. He said, Jim, I want to be disciplined, but I do it for 3 days and then I'm back to the old me. I didn't ask what he did. I asked what he thought. And he answered, I think I'm just not the disciplined type. Just one sentence. But it explained why all his efforts failed. I told him, you didn't fail at action. You failed at inner identity. And only when he started saying something different. I am a disciplined person. I'm just learning to live more disciplined. Did everything begin to change? Identity changed. Habits immediately followed. A person who thinks I'm not a gym person will work out and then quit after just 3 days. A person who thinks I'm not good at communication will avoid every chance to speak English. A person who thinks I don't have the wealth gene will never invest. But a person who believes I am someone who is growing every day has no more limits. Belief determines action. Action determines results. Results in turn feed belief. That is an undefeated loop if you start in the right place. You can't plant an orange tree and hope it grows apples. Identity is the root. Habits are the fruit. If you want sweeter fruit, you must change the tree, not fix each fruit one by one. A question for you. Are you trying to change a habit, or are you trying to become the kind of person who has that habit? These two things look similar, but they are completely different. You don't change by forcing a new habit. You change by becoming the person who naturally lives with that habit. The day I decided to get rich, I was still living like a poor man. My actions were still old because my identity was still old. Only when I changed my identity could I change my actions. And when actions changed, the future turned a new page. I learned that habits don't change your life. A new identity is what changes your life. And once you have a new identity, the next question will be, what am I sowing every day? Because identity gives you strength. But what you plant is what creates your future. Principle 5. The law of sowing and reaping. Every small choice is creating your life. I used to think life was made of big events, turning points, major opportunities. But the longer I lived, the more I realized life doesn't change because of special days. It changes because of what you sow each day. And the thing is, we sow more than we think. Every thought is a seed. Every action is a seed. Every small choice is also a seed. Life is like a field and you are its farmer. I grew up in the countryside where farmers didn't talk in philosophies but lived by truths I would spend a lifetime trying to understand. One farmer once told me when I was young, "Jim, whatever seed you plant, that's exactly what you'll harvest. It can't be any other way." Back then, I heard it but didn't understand. Only when I grew older, when I slowed down and looked at my life, did I see how painfully right he was. A moment that woke me up. Once I met a young woman. She was exhausted. Her eyes red from lack of sleep. She said, "Jim, I don't understand why my life is always a mess. Work is a mess. Money is a mess. My mind is a mess." I didn't give her quick advice. I gently asked, "What do you do every day? What do you do in the morning? What do you do at night? Who do you spend time with? What do you read? Who do you listen to?" And as she answered, I didn't hear any big mistake. I only heard small mistakes, very small, but repeated. Going to bed late, waking up late, eating in a rush, working without a plan, spending time with people who only complain, spending hours drifting mindlessly on social media, not reading, not learning, not resting properly. I told her softly, "My dear, your life isn't messy because of one event. It's messy because of the seeds you plant every day." She looked down, and I knew that moment had touched her. No one sees what you plant each day. No one sees you read 10 pages. No one sees you save $10. No one sees you work out for 20 minutes. No one sees you turn down a hangout to do something more important. And no one sees you skip reading, skip working out, skip discipline, skip the promises you made to yourself. But life, it sees everything and it pays back in full. But it pays back after a while. So many people think it's unfair. It's not. Life is very fair. In fact, fair to the point of being ruthless. It only returns the seeds you sow. You can't plant weeds and expect a field of golden rice. You can't plant laziness and expect a blossoming future. You can't plant carelessness and expect stability. Life doesn't betray you. It's just more honest with you than you are with yourself. You plant 5 minutes of complaining each day, you will reap a heavy mind. You plant kindness each day, you will reap warm relationships. You plant the habit of procrastination, you will reap eroded self-respect. You plant 1% progress, you will reap a stronger version of yourself next year. These things don't require genius to understand. They only require honesty. A question I want you to ask yourself tonight. If what you planted today grew into an entire forest in 5 years, would you want to live in that forest? If the answer is yes, plant more of it. If the answer is no, change your seeds. Starting tomorrow morning or starting this very moment, you don't reap according to your wishes. You reap according to your habits. And the habits you plant will become the life you harvest. I once blamed life for being too harsh. But when I look back, I saw that I had been planting carelessness, planting impulsiveness, planting easy choices with no thought. I reaped exactly what I sowed. Not an inch off. Only when I changed each small seed, a page of a book, a workout, a promise kept, a moment of victory over myself, did my life begin to change direction. Not in one night, but in each new seed I planted. And when you start sowing good things, you will discover something amazing. They multiply faster than you think. Principle 6. The compound effect. Small things build a big life. When I was young, I often thought success came from big leaps, a big opportunity, a big decision, one life-changing day. But as I looked back, I realized the complete opposite. Life doesn't change because of big things. It changes because of small things, repeated long enough. And I call that the compound effect. The compound effect, the silent force that changes destiny. What makes this effect dangerous and also wonderful is this. It doesn't show you results right away. You read 5 pages, you won't become smarter. You save $5, your bank account doesn't grow much. You work out for 10 minutes, your body doesn't look different yet. But when you skip reading, you don't suddenly become worse. When you skip working out, you don't instantly become weak. Because of that, many people underestimate small things, and then those very small things create their entire life. I once met 2 men the same age, same job, same income, same circumstances. The first man told me, "Jim, I'll read when I have time." The second man said, "I don't have much time, so I just read 10 minutes a day." 5 years later, they were no longer alike. The first man was still living the same way, still stuck in pressure, still feeling life is hard. The second man was different. He spoke with more depth, thought more broadly. More opportunities came his way. And when I asked him what made the difference, he just smiled and said, 10 minutes a day, Jim. It's so small, no one believes it can change anything. But 5 years later, it changed who I am. That is the compound effect. You spend $100 once, no big deal. But you spend $100 carelessly every week, your financial future will shake. You work out once, nothing changes. But 20 minutes a day for 365 days and you become a different person. You say, "I love you" once. That doesn't create a lasting bond. But you show love every day. The relationship becomes a firm foundation. Repetition creates difference. Consistency creates strength. Compounding creates destiny. Imagine a small drop of water falling on a rock. 1 drop does nothing. 10 drops do nothing. But thousands, tens of thousands of drops over many years. Even the rock must give way. People are the same. Small things done right long enough will break every limit you thought you had. 10 minutes of reading a day becomes 3,650 minutes a year, enough to finish more than 12 books. 1% better each day makes you 37 times better after a year. Scrolling social media 30 minutes every morning costs you 180 hours a year. Saving $30 a week gives you about $1,500 a year. And in 5 years, that's enough for a real investment. That's not magic. That's math. That's life. That's the compound effect. An action question for you. What are you compounding every day? Advantages or disadvantages? Discipline or indulgence? Future or regret? Answer honestly. Because the compound effect doesn't judge right or wrong. It only multiplies what you repeat. The small things you repeat every day will become the life you live 5 years from now. The compound effect spares no one. It only follows what you choose to plant. When I look back at my life, I didn't see big turning points that changed me. I saw small habits, small actions, choices that seemed ordinary, and all of them added up to the life I have today. I didn't change in one night. I changed in countless small days, quietly but consistently, and when the compound effect becomes clear, there will come a time when you realize something deeper. Discipline is the tool, but environment is what keeps you on track. Principle 7: Environment relationships. The people around you are quietly shaping your future. There is something that took me many years to understand, and once I did, I wished I had known it sooner. You don't just become the version of yourself you work hard to build. You become the version of the people you stay around. Not because you're weak. Not because you're easily influenced, but because humans are designed to harmonize with their environment. You may have strong will. You may have big goals. You may have a heart full of determination. But if the 3 people closest to you live carelessly, lack discipline, procrastinate, always complain, are always negative, then it is very hard for you to rise. Not because they are bad, but because their energy pulls you down without asking for permission. Like mud sticking to your shoes, It doesn't ask if you want to get dirty or not. It just sticks. I once mentored a very smart young man. He had dreams, had goals, had discipline. But every month he failed. He said, "Jim, I don't understand why every time I try, I slip back." I asked him, "Who are your closest friends?" He listed 3 names. I was silent for a few seconds and then said, "You're not failing because you lack ability. You're failing because you're living in an environment that doesn't allow you to win." His face dropped because he understood. It wasn't that his friends were bad. It's just that they lived by a philosophy completely opposite to the path he wanted. And if you live long enough in a dark room, the darkness will feel normal. A few years later, I saw him again. He was successful. He said just one sentence. "I changed my friends and my life changed with them." Stay around people who complain, you will easily become pessimistic. Stay around people who take action, you will become someone full of solutions. Stay around people who invest in themselves, you will start to follow. Stay around people who procrastinate, you will start slowing down like them. People follow their environment more than they follow their goals. Imagine you are a good seed. If you are planted in fertile soil, you will grow strong. If you are planted in barren soil, you will be weak. Not because the seed is weak, but because the soil can't nourish it. You don't just need good habits. You need good soil for those habits to survive. An action question for you. Are the people you stay around pulling you up or keeping you in place? Are they bringing you closer to the future you want or pushing you away from what you're seeking? Answer gently. But honestly, you can't build a big life with people who only think small, and you can't fly high while staying under a very low sky. I once thought success was only a personal matter. But the more I experienced, the more I saw. A good environment can take you farther than solo effort. I succeeded not just because I was disciplined. I succeeded because I chose the right people to stay close to. People who inspired me, dared to live big, dared to learn, dared to step out of their comfort zone. When I changed my relationships, my life changed direction. Not in one day, but in each conversation, each value I learned from them. And when the environment is lifting you up, you will realize something bigger. Discipline is not a burden. It is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. Principle 8. Small discipline, big results. The bridge between where you stand and where you want to go. There is a truth that many people nod at, but very few truly understand. Discipline is not a punishment. Discipline is a gift you give to your own future. And the most wonderful thing is discipline doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be flashy. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be small but consistent. That's all. I used to think I needed a huge plan to change my life. A big job, a big opportunity, or some kind of major breakthrough. But as I look back, I realized my life didn't change because of big choices. It changed because of the small disciplines I kept every day. 10 minutes of reading, 20 minutes of exercise, 5 minutes reviewing my spending, 15 minutes planning my day. Those things sound not impressive at all. But those unimpressive things created a very different life. I once mentored a man who always felt not good enough. He said, "Jim, I can't stay disciplined. I've tried many times and every time I fail." I asked him, "How many things are you trying to change at once?" He replied, "I want to change everything. Health, money, work, my mind." I smiled and said, "That's exactly why you're failing. People don't lose because they're weak. People lose because they carry too heavy a load when they're just starting." I told him to do only one thing. Read 5 pages a day. No more, no less. 3 months later, he came back. His eyes were brighter. His voice was steadier. He said, "I'm not just reading 5 pages anymore, Jim. I read 20 pages. I started working out again. I managed my money better. I feel more confident." Not because he changed everything, but because one small discipline changed the way he saw himself. When you win a small battle, you believe you can win a bigger one. A person who runs 5 minutes a day will be healthier in a year than someone who hasn't run in 10 years. A person who reads 10 pages every morning will become a different person after 3 years. A person who saves $30 a week will have their own investment capital after 5 years. A person who spends 15 minutes planning will have a clearer, more confident day. Small discipline, but very big results. Imagine discipline as a brick. One brick can't build anything. But lay one brick each day consistently without quitting. One day you look back and see yourself standing inside the house you built for your own life. Neglect is like laying a brick, but a rotten one. Lay enough of them and the whole house collapses and you won't know why. An action question for you. What is the small thing you know you should do but you keep procrastinating on? Between two choices, do one small thing today or wait for a big opportunity tomorrow. The winner always chooses the small thing today. Small discipline is proof that you are serious about your future and the future will respond seriously to you. I used to fail not because I lacked goals. I failed because I lacked small discipline. I wanted to change my whole life, but I couldn't even keep a 5-minute habit. When I started small, went slow, repeated, and kept my promises to myself. I didn't just change my habits. I changed the person living underneath those habits. Small discipline doesn't create change in a day, but it creates the person who can change an entire life in a few years. And once you understand the power of small discipline, there will come a time when you realize another important truth. Neglect also has a compound effect, but in a much more brutal way. Principle 9. The cost of neglect. The small things you ignore will destroy your whole life. There is a truth many people only realize when it's already too late. Discipline weighs only a few ounces, but neglect weighs tons. That ton doesn't fall in one day. It falls slowly from each small habit you ignore. Each promise you break to yourself. Each thing you know is right but still postpone. Neglect is not loud. It is quiet, silent but certain. You skip a run today. Nothing happens. You eat one unhealthy meal. Still fine. You overspend a little. No one complains. You skip reading for a day. No one notices. But then day after day, a little bit like that, and suddenly one day you look back and ask yourself, how did I end up like this? The answer lies in the moments no one saw. A bit of neglect today, a bit of neglect tomorrow. Then they cling together into a chain. That chain becomes a habit. And that habit becomes destiny. A real life story I'll never forget. I once worked with a very kind man. He wasn't bad. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't dishonest. He just neglected the small things. He told me, "Jim, I don't understand why my life gets a little worse every year." I asked him, "A year ago, what did you do every morning?" He told me. I asked again. And now, and as he answered, he stopped midway because he realized he had dropped his reading habit. He had stopped tracking his spending. He had quit his morning workout. He had let go of small daily plans. He had stopped having deep conversations with his family. There were no big mistakes. Just a lot of small things neglected for too long. I looked at him and said, "You didn't fail because of one event. You failed because of thousands of small choices going in the wrong direction." His face grew serious. But that was the moment his life began to change. Skip 10 minutes of exercise each day. In 5 years, your body will decline. Skip saving $20 a week. In 5 years, you'll have no reserves. Skip listening to the one you love, and your relationship with the person you love will quietly grow cold. Skip going to bed on time, and your mind will be tired for a long time. Skip taking care of yourself, and your self-respect will slowly erode. Neglect doesn't destroy you instantly. It destroys you slowly, very slowly. So slowly that you think you're still okay. Imagine you are pulling a car uphill. It's heavy, but you can still pull it bit by bit. But if you let go for just 1 second, the car will roll backward faster than you think. That is neglect. You let go just a little, but the consequences are very heavy. Ask yourself, what small thing have you neglected for too long? If you don't change today, what will it become in 5 years? Be honest. Because neglect never stays still. It is always growing in the direction you don't want. You can pay the price for discipline now or pay 100 times more for neglect later, but you cannot avoid paying. I once thought I failed because I lacked opportunities. But when I looked closer, I saw that I failed because I lacked very small things. I dropped planning. I dropped self-study. I dropped taking responsibility. I dropped the right choices just because they were uncomfortable. And life paid me back every single debt of neglect. Not because it is cruel, but because it is ruthlessly fair. When I started fixing each small thing, each broken piece of my life, then everything slowly came back into order. Not because of a miracle, but because I stopped neglecting and started taking care of myself. And when you understand the cost of neglect, you will see more clearly the power of designed habits. Intentional habits don't just save you from failure. They carry you into a future you once thought was impossible. Principle 10. Designing habits create the life you want one day at a time. There is something I only understood much later, and it completely changed the way I live. Habits don't form on their own. Habits are designed. You don't accidentally become healthy. You don't accidentally become wise. You don't accidentally become wealthy. Everything comes from intentional habits built day by day from small choices that seem harmless but repeated long enough become your life. Life is a system. If you don't design it, it will design you. Have you ever felt this? The feeling of telling yourself you'll sleep early tonight, but then scrolling on your phone until 2 a.m. The feeling of wanting to wake up early, but ending up hitting snooze 3 times. The feeling of wanting to work out, but always leaving it for tomorrow. That's not because you're weak. It's because you're living by an old system. A system formed by old habits. A system designed not by intention but by default. And default habits rarely take you somewhere good. I once mentored a woman, a mother of 2. She said, "Jim, I want to live better, but my days are always chaotic. I feel like I'm constantly chasing life and can't control it." I asked, "Do you have a morning system?" She shook her head. "What about the evening?" She shook her head again. I smiled and said, "Without a system, chaos is guaranteed." I told her to create 3 small habits. 10 minutes in the morning just for herself. 10 minutes at night to clear her mind. 5 minutes to write down 3 things she's grateful for each day. It didn't sound like anything big. But a month later, she came back with a lighter, clearer look in her eyes. She said, "I'm not chasing life anymore, Jim. I'm leading it. Not because of something big, but because of 3 habits designed in the right place." Good habits don't come from willpower. They come from structure. You may want to live healthy, but if you leave junk food right in front of you, you'll eat it. You may want to read, but if you keep your books in a cabinet, you'll forget them. You may want to work out, but if your workout gear is upstairs, you'll be reluctant to get it. Willpower is the flame, but structure is the stove that keeps the flame. Designing habits is designing a life where doing the right thing becomes easy and doing the wrong thing becomes hard. Imagine habits as track. Once you place the train of your life on the right tracks, it will naturally move toward a better place. But if the tracks are wrong, the harder you push, the more lost the train becomes. Not because you're incapable, but because the tracks don't lead where you want to go. Put books on your desk and you'll read more. Block addictive apps and you'll focus more. Lay out your workout clothes the night before and you'll be more proactive in the morning and stop making excuses. Write down 3 important tasks the night before and when you wake up, you'll know exactly what to do. Turn off extra alarms and you won't be dragged out of important sleep. Small designs, big results. Ask yourself, if your life is a system, is that system taking you up or pulling you down? And a more important question, are you designing it or are you letting it run on default? Habits don't decide your future. Habits decide the person you become. And the person you become decides the future you receive. I once wanted to change my life with inspiration. But inspiration only carried me for a few days. Systems carried me for years. When I designed small, manageable habits, 1 page every morning, 1 hour of learning every evening, 1 review of my goals each week. Principle 11. Emotional endurance. The ability to stand firm when things don't go your way. I used to think people who collapse are weak. People who quit lack ability. But the longer I live, the more I experience, the more I realize a completely different truth. People don't collapse because they lack talent. People collapse because their emotions can't bear the weight. Life doesn't defeat you with big blows. It defeats you with small disappointments piled up every day until you no longer want to get back up. There are days you give your all but get no results. There are days you try hard, but opportunities stay silent. There are days you feel like you're moving backward even though you're doing everything right. Those days are not the days to prove your talent. They are the days to prove your emotional endurance. Talent gets you started. Discipline gets you part of the way, but emotional endurance gets you all the way. Many years ago, I lost everything. Money, work, reputation, belief in myself. Do you know what broke me the most? Not losing money, not failing in business, but the feeling, I'm useless. That emotion was like a storm dragging me to the bottom. I lay on the couch staring at the ceiling and asked myself, maybe life chose the wrong person. Maybe I'm not good enough to stand up again. But then I remembered my mentor's words. Jim, you don't lose because you fail.